have to confess that there is very little that I get more excited about than entrepreneurs, and especially ones that are bridging the gap between India and the United States. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my background as we go. But I want to kind of set the stage when I begin speaking by talking a little bit about education. That's a field that I'm in right now as the Dean of School of Law at Woxsen University. So I thought it would be appropriate to start from that standpoint. So many of you may not be aware that India has placed itself on the world stage of education by implementing the National Education Policy of 2021. They have decided that from a national level that they would like to be the Vishwa Guru or hub of education throughout the entire world. That's amazing. Yeah, please, applaud. It's amazing. I am so impressed at the initiative that India has taken to do that because it's a huge task. It's a huge task to not only have an education system that is robust enough to compete globally, but to actually engage globally as well. I'm encouraged by that, I'm excited by it, and it's the reason that I'm here in India. Combine that with India's foreign trade, approximately 50% of India's economy is based on foreign trade. It's continuing to rise, it's continuing to go up, and I believe in the next 10 years, India will be the dominant economic superpower in the world. Tremendously exciting. The education sector has recognized this. As I work at Woxsen University and watch what other universities are doing, seeing how they're preparing for globalization, seeing what we're doing, I see a common thread that education across India has embraced this. They're excited about it. They are building the next generation of entrepreneurs, and they are sending them globally. The world is ripe for global entrepreneurship at this point. This is great news for students that we're launching into the workplace. It's also great news for people like you, investors, and the people who build these pathways around the world for people to work globally. So how did I get here? I was a lawyer in the United States. I practiced law there for 10 years. And I guess in a way I was an entrepreneur. I started and built my law firm there from the ground up. And I did that for about 10 years. And if I have one confession to make, don't tell anyone I said this, I really liked the business aspect better than I liked the lawyering. I liked managing, I liked developing strategy, I liked dealing with advertisers, I liked solving problems. The courtroom work was okay, I could do it, but I loved the business aspect of it. As I was doing that in the United States, I launched in some other businesses. We owned a variety of different things, insurance companies, and I owned some restaurants and some different things. And each new exciting venture was fuel for the fire inside my spirit about entrepreneurship. I shifted to India in 2014, and the goal was to help an orphanage and school we started here get off the ground, and to start them into business, do some more entrepreneurship on this side, so they wouldn't have to always ask for more and more donations and survive on donations. They could survive on business. When I got here, I'd planned to spend about 6 months in India. I found out very quickly that the orphanage and school was a giant scam, to my great surprise, and was very disappointed to find that out. But I was here in India. So I said, hey, look, I'm here. I have a wife. I have 3 daughters. We're all in India. Let's travel around and see this amazing country. Well, 6 months turned into 10 years. I ended up doing 2 law degrees here, locally at Nalsar University. And it gave me a pretty unique perspective on law in the United States and in India. I got to be able to bridge the gap in law and see how law affected business globally, and the way that we can look at various legal challenges, global opportunities, and how to move entrepreneurship between the 2 countries. I get excited about that. I would like to spend just a little time with you tonight talking about some of the legal challenges, some of the opportunities that you may have, and then offer you some actionable insights based on my experience in this field, both in the United States and in India. So let me work through just a few legal challenges, because I think these are things that you're pretty likely to run into if you're doing entrepreneurship, especially globally. Our students that are at Woxsen University that are part of our trade tower, which is a business incubation center, I always encourage them to bring a lawyer on early. I said, bring one of the law students or bring a lawyer into your business early on, and hopefully it can help you avoid or at least navigate some of the challenges I'm going to talk to you about tonight. I encourage you to do the same. First, navigating international trade laws. International trade laws are a bit tricky because they change constantly with new political parties involved, with governments. As these governments move to try to press their advantage in the world, you run as a business owner headlong into international trade laws, which are a lot of times largely created as political maneuvers, but they affect you. You're going to have to know how to navigate those. You're going to have to keep up on the rules related to trade agreements and tariffs. You have to comply with those. You also have unspecified local practices. I had a client one time that tried to bring equipment over to India to get involved in a business here, and it got stuck at the port. And for months and months and months, this equipment is stuck, and he could not figure out how to navigate it. Well, why? Well, you who live here in India know exactly why. Because there's somebody at the port that wants a little money before they move that stuff out. But he doesn't understand that. He came from the United States. He doesn't know the local custom. They were frustrated that he didn't know the local custom, and so everything came to a standstill. Knowing those local customs, knowing international trade laws is tremendously important. I encourage you to keep a watch in the United States this next year as our election cycle changes administrations. I think you're going to see a lot of interesting things related to international trade law. The next thing, intellectual property. Intellectual property is a booming field in the law right now. I keep more intellectual property faculty at Woxsen University than I do any other area of law. Tremendously important because it is a risk area, a dominant risk area for businesses. You have all kinds of things that relate to patents, trademarks, copyrights. You have rules that operate globally that even if you're protected in one jurisdiction, you may not be protected in another. You also have technology changing this, that before you had to worry about your business on the ground, now you have social media to worry about. Are you going to monitor that constantly? How are you going to enforce that? What's your policy internally for protecting your intellectual property? It's tremendously important. It's a huge part of the value of your business. It's also pretty specific. Some businesses want tight control over their intellectual property. Other businesses, not as much. Businesses that might be, maybe they're in a relatively minor market. It's very particular. Right? They sell, DOSA supplies in the United States. There's not many people that do that. They're not really worried about their intellectual property being stolen. But there are other ones that intend to use their branding as a dominant part of their business strategy, and they may need more enforcement. I will say to you, this is an area where, as an entrepreneur, you should expect to get out your wallet and pay a lot for legal fees, or I suggest you bring somebody on. If you have legal counsel involved in your business from the ground up, they can help you build a team that navigates some of these intellectual property issues even overseas. It means that they're probably going to have to work with lawyers overseas that specialize in those jurisdictions, but they can probably cut a lot of costs for you by understanding how those lawyers are charging and which ones are being fair and which ones are not. It's a danger zone that quite a lot of our business students don't understand very well, and our law students certainly understand a little bit better. Next, cross-border contracts and dispute resolution. This is an area I'm particularly passionate about. In my legal career, I drafted quite a bit of cross-border contracts, and they're complicated. I'm attracted to that. I like it. It's difficult work. Language matters, so sometimes you're navigating different languages. You're quibbling over minor words and what the meanings are of those. It's not for everybody. It's very, very picky work. And then worse, once you're done with all that and you have the contract in place, if something goes wrong, how do you enforce it? What jurisdiction are you going to use? Are you going to try to enforce it in India and navigate the court system here for a decade? Are you going to try to enforce it in the United States? It has a much faster and more rigid system. You have some choices to make, and the time to make those choices are when you're drafting the contract, not when you have trouble. So you need a good legal counsel that works with you on drafting contracts. I also highly recommend, and note this down in the back of your head for when this occurrence happens, that you look into alternative dispute resolution rather than trying to navigate court systems when it comes to international contracts. You're in luck. The International Arbitration and Mediation Center here in Hyderabad is absolutely top-notch. They received my highest recommendation. They work globally. They do alternative dispute resolution, both mediation and arbitration, and they're located right here. I am a huge fan of their work. I recommend that you get involved with them early. Go speak with them. Spend a little time with them. See what they do, and observe how they navigate some of these issues like global contracts. And I think you'll find that it's a great way that you can save money and come to a resolution much, much quicker than hiring lawyers globally to work out contract disputes. And you'll have them. Every client that I drafted contracts for, I would tell them, I'm drafting for the eventual dispute. That's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to work it so that you don't have it, but chances are you may. You're going to have to plan for that ahead of time, because if you don't, you'll be left hanging out to dry as an entrepreneur, and you'll spend all your time navigating a difficult contract situation than doing business the way that you love. Next, regulatory compliance. And I've separated this from international trade law because regulatory compliance often focuses on tax law. The United States, fortunately for you, has just 70,000 pages of tax law to navigate. Most lawyers are unable to navigate that even in a lifetime of study. It's vast, it's very, very complicated, and it needs to be planned for ahead of time. Tax law is a little like toothpaste. Once it's out of the tube, you can't get it back in. The only thing left is cleanup. So I advise you to do your tax planning ahead of time. Get with a legal counsel that understands tax planning in the jurisdiction you're going into, whether it be the United States or elsewhere, and plan for it. You do not want to be paying double taxes between two countries. You can avoid all of that. You do not want to be subject to an investigation. The United States, as an example, rolled out the Patriot Act. I think it was it might have been 2003, 2004. And they rolled it out to combat terrorism. The Patriot Act allows them to do warrantless searches of business accounts, look through what you're doing, and wage a prosecution against you before you ever know that it's happening. This was used presumptively to stop terrorism in some ways, but the vast majority of uses of the Patriot Act was used to prosecute online businesses, particularly online gambling. The United States regularly does that. If you have a business that's moving money back and forth overseas, the United States will use the Patriot Act to take a look at that and see what you're doing, and perhaps prosecute you if you've misstepped anywhere. Don't fall into that trap. It's dangerous and it's very, very difficult to back out. When the Patriot Act was introduced, business owners across the United States objected, but it was passed into law and used extensively to go after businesses. Be wary of some of these things. Employment law. Employment law also varies vastly between jurisdictions. There are a number of different ways that employment law plays out in India that will get you into trouble in the United States. Remember, the United States is a very litigious society, meaning we thrive on lawsuits. There are lawyers everywhere. They're eager to file them. They're eager to try to take money from you if they can, and they will grab onto an employment situation in a hurry to make your life miserable. There's a variety of different things that we do regularly here in India that you cannot do in the United States. Ask for a photo of the employee. Here we give photos for everything, for your cell phone plan, for your identification at work. If you ask for that in the United States, you may be in trouble. If you ask about religion, family status, pregnancy, gender, if you're verbally abusive, if you try to keep people's original degree documents, happens all the time in India, doesn't it? Ask any of the tech students coming out. Not in the United States. If you do that, you're going to lose a lot of money. A lawyer will eat you up in court for doing something like that, and you'll have no idea because you've always seen it done here. It's a different experience once you go globally, and you have to watch out for some of these danger zones. The other thing that's interesting about employment law in the United States is they don't do things like experience certificates like you have in India. I've been asked for that when working here, and I didn't have any idea what they were even talking about. That's what my CV is for, right? That has my experience on it. But it's quite different. It's quite different here. They want those experience certificates, and employees are often tied to their industry in order to make sure that they get their documents back, that they get their experience certificate, and there's a lot of hold over employees by employers. Not so in the United States. If tomorrow you decide you don't want to work there anymore, you walk out the door. That's it. That's the whole thing. If the next day the employer doesn't want you to work there anymore, they can send you out. That's it. That's the relationship. They can fire you at will and you can quit at will and nobody cares. There are no experience certificates, you just move on to the next job. That's a danger zone if you're an entrepreneur, right? You don't want to train somebody and pour a lot of time and effort into them for them to take all your business ideas, walk out the door to your competitor, right? Well, in the United States, what we can do is we can draft non-compete agreements. They're illegal here in India, you're not allowed to do it, but in the United States we use them regularly. Almost every business uses them. Get a lawyer to help you do that. Confidentiality agreements, non-compete agreements will help protect your business. The other thing is, I will say from a practical experience, they're not very expensive either. It's a couple $100 to draft those, but tremendous protection. There are also a number of specific industry-related regulations that have to be navigated. You have licensing issues, you have things like mandatory reporters, HIPAA, privacy, data privacy. All of these things have to be navigated carefully. If you misstep in some of these areas, it can be damaging to your business. It is absolutely essential that you do advanced research or have somebody who's good at it do it for you, and that you have an experienced compliance officer that's watching for these things. I remember a case I had against a contractor who had let their contractor's builder builds houses. He had let his license lapse, and therefore he was barred from defending himself in court because he was operating without a license. Easy case for me to win, right? I get to go after his assets. As soon as I realize that, that's a great client for me. Be careful of that, right? That may have been a mistake. I think he was a pretty shady guy, but either way, don't make a mistake and let a license lapse or something that gets you into lawsuit trouble. Last area in word of warning, cybersecurity and data privacy. This is huge right now. As technology changes, you have an increased risk of cyber threats targeting global businesses. Anytime you're moving money overseas, anytime you're moving money electronically, cybersecurity is a big issue. And businesses often come into that space very ill-prepared to protect themselves, and they lose money from cyber attacks. Worse, they may lose data. That could be worse because it could expose your clients. And now, instead of just losing your money, you've lost money for them, and every single one of those clients may sue you. And then you lose money from all of them as well. It's usually a house of cards. It all falls as soon as that one is taken away. So be very, very careful with your cybersecurity and data privacy. Again, I would expect that you should engage somebody who is good at tech. I am not particularly good at tech, so when I had my law firm, that's what we did. We engaged a tech expert because I don't want my clients' data out there to be stolen or used. I have dealt with a case where an attorney had that happen in his office. It was devastating. His client data got out. They used that client data to apply for a host of credit cards and other things that they then used and spent money on, and he had to, one, sort it out for the client, sort it out for all of the businesses, and pay the price to make sure that that happened because his data protection was not up to speed. Be careful there. If it can happen to an attorney in the United States that isn't good at this, it can happen to an entrepreneur that is out there and is excited about the business world and just wants to do business, right? There are people that handle these sort of things that allow you to do that. I call it sleep insurance, so that every night you can go to sleep knowing that you have a compliance officer or somebody doing research in these areas to make sure that you're protected. That's all my words of warning. Now that I've probably scared you to death, let's talk about opportunities. And I'll be quick. So I want to just tell you that it is not all doom and gloom or worry out there in the world. Lawyers are there to be your best friend, to help you walk through some of these areas. And the world is wide open to expand your market access. I don't think that you should be worried about the risk of some of the things I mentioned. What you should do is choose your risk. Get somebody to help you work through some of these things so that they can set aside the risk in these areas, and you can take risk on where you want to. With your investors, with a new product design, with your advertising, something that excites you and something that you want to personally engage with. Get somebody else to handle these things like tax laws and the things that are a little bit drier in nature. You have an amazing opportunity to leverage a global talent pool like never before. Technology has allowed us to cross borders without tremendous travel costs. We have things like Zoom meetings and moving currency globally, all kinds of brand new technology fields. AI is up and coming. There's a lot of focus in this area that allows you to do business like you've never done before, and you're on the forefront of it. Be excited about that. It's amazing. Don't get caught in some of these legal traps, but get out there and do business across borders, because there is a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of fun to be had, and I want to be the first one to encourage you to do that. So I'll just close with warning you to stay away from treacherous territory by planning, but again, to get out there and incubate new businesses, engage with governments and other business entrepreneurs across the globe, engage with research that drives your industry forward, and stay connected and safe as you engage with new global markets. So I'll leave you there. I will stick around always after. If you have further questions and you want to have a discussion about any one of these things, I'd be more than happy to do it with you. Thank you for having me today.